I want to maybe provide you with a bit more detail on what I find the motivation to do those things. And it's primarily because I believe that well-being technologies as such, and that designing interfaces for those technologies, they actually provoke larger HCI challenges. So through designing technologies for well-being, we actually learn a lot about people and how people use technologies, and maybe, hopefully, ideally, about how to design these technologies. And to illustrate that, I want to briefly mention two of three projects that we've been working on, and they really show how you can take the very fundamental question of how do we design a good technology for well-being, and use different perspectives and thus ask different HCI questions within that inquiry. And these are the systems perspectives. I'll show you one cool gadget that we've built, and that we've learned stuff about systems. Then I'll show how designing technologies for well-being provokes us or requires us sometimes to develop new methods. And then I'll talk a bit about how we can understand people better through the lens of studying well-being technologies. So without further ado, we start with if I click on the thing, maybe. Oh, no, this is way too fast. There we go. Okay. Good. The mic is muted.
No, it's on. This was before.
Okay.
Yes, it's all.
Okay, so we started with systems, and some of you in this room know me, and you know that what fascinates me is all of these data types, right? So for a long time, what has been an inspiration to me is the fact that if you go to MediaMarkt, there are so many things that you can buy, and these things, they will generate a ton of data about yourself. So suddenly we have this perspective of I'm in the center of attention, and there's so many numbers that can generate just by buying a couple of gadgets and just walking around this lecture room for a moment. I can generate so many data points, right? And I mean, it's really cool from a technologist perspective, as sort of having an engineering background. I find it really cool, but obviously the challenge here is to actually ensure that some of these data points contribute to our well-being, right? And this is an example of a system that we like, and then we bought this very early on, and now it's actually a proper company. It's called what's it called? It's called Run Stride. Run Stride. Yeah, I forgot the name of the startup, and I don't have it in the slide. Anyhow, it's a foot board. You put it on your shoe, preferably a running shoe, but I did try it with dress shoes as well. It works. And basically it produces all kinds of statistics about how you run, how you walk. They even do Nordic walking right now. So what we were wondering about, okay, how we can take this and move on from these very complicated graphs into something that is useful for an everyday user that is perhaps not that fascinated by all these data points. So yeah, there we go. So we built these, and the funny story about these is I got really into trouble with some of the university accountants because I bought multiple pairs of running shoes, and they were suspecting that was running. But the way I got out of the trouble, I showed them, look, we're not running, and then I actually took out the undersole, right? And this was a funny thing. So because we actually had to dremel out the entire undersole of the shoe, and what we did is we replaced the undersole with an LED matrix hidden underneath a layer of semi-transparent silicone, so that we could visualize stuff on the shoe. It's a very simple metaphor, right? So we take all these complicated data points and we bring them back to where the actual action happens. So from having this on the computer screen and all the fancy graphs, we say, look, this is your foot, and the people could actually adjust a time scale on the computer to decide when they want to see the run, and they say at this particular point during your run, this is where the strike pattern was on your foot, right? And in a way, it's a very simplistic solution. It's about bringing back the very intense data intense knowledge into the field, so to speak, reassociating us with the primary activities that we are concerned. Because let's be honest, no sane person, so to speak, while running is concerned about, is my gait pattern going to be 3% different today? They are concerned about if they can do the training well, if it feels well, if they have fun, if it's relaxing. Right? But obviously, these things, they do affect all of these things, how we feel about it, and obviously if you have gait issues that they can cause injury, so that understanding is beneficial, but bringing it together with the activity is a challenge. Unfortunately, it also turns out that not only did people actually, not only did users like it, as we like to say, but perhaps most importantly, we found that they actually observed more things about their running using the device. The interesting fact here was, though, and that's something that I still struggle to fully understand, is they actually perceived they had less knowledge, right? It kind of shows, not significantly, but we have a trend here. So what we thought about is there's probably a certain market appeal to all of these systems that produce that vision of having a lot of data about you. Kind of probably feels good that there are so many data points about me, and probably the graphs seem professional. Right? So anyway, and I would say this is the question: how do we navigate that? How do we on one hand build systems where people feel that the systems produce a lot of data that describes people well? On the other hand, how we make that data understandable to people? And this leads me to my second perspective, which I very boldly call method, because we have been looking more into the same direction of okay, what happens if we put sensors on people, and how we can bring the data closer to them. And the issue is the foot pod is just one pod that it looks kind of weird if you're not used to it, but you're going to forget about it. But cooler sensors, so to speak, they're even worse, right? And sort of and for us, you know, if you've seen a PCI before, probably this is kind of okay. It's impractical. For an average person that is not crazy about engineering, this is pretty scary already, right? On the other hand, again, we know that sort of all kinds of EEG measurements, as shown here, they can have benefits, and sort of understanding, again, as we were discussing about understanding our gait, understanding how your brain works is something that people almost universally like to do, right? But then we have the contrast that it comes at the cost of a very complicated sensor that does not look appealing. And this prompted us to trying to perhaps look a bit more into that. So the initial activity was we went around. This is Florian Alang from LMU. We took different pictures of Florian and we showed them to people, and we started talking about how does it make you feel and so on. And eventually the term that appeared the most was creepy, right? And so what we did there is we thought, okay, so this is a design challenge, so to speak, where we want to put sensors on people to benefit their well-being, but it's sometimes creepy. So I'd say the design problem is, okay, how do we make them less creepy? How do we make them less creepy? How do we build systems for well-being that perhaps not eliminate, but minimize the creepiness? And to do that, what we decided is basically, okay, we have to basically be able to tell apart systems that are more creepy versus systems that are less creepy, which means, oh wait, we need a measurement instrument. And then I spent about 2 months reading stuff about creepiness, and some of this was really creepy. In psychology, there are basically studies of different clowns, and you talk about which clowns are creepier and what kind of faces are creepier, and sort of some people have clown-like faces and they're creepy. So based on that reading, and there was some prior work in HCI on creepiness, but rather limited and only of a qualitative way. So based on that, we developed this theoretical model of creepiness, which supposes that three things essentially contribute to creepiness, and these are implied malice. So the idea that whoever designed the system is evil, and they want to use the system for evil means. Undesirability. So the idea that the system will put you in a situation that would be socially or personally unacceptable, or an unpredictability, which means that you kind of anticipate what the system will do. Right? And in order to confirm that, and honestly, also in order to make that usable in further studies, what we did was we built a scale around this, and this is the formal model of the scale, and you can see that it's an 8-item scale that enables you to measure the perceived creepiness of a given system. If you like stats, it's a bit weird that there are only 2 items in the implied malice factor, but after some long discussions, we are quite certain that this is the correct model. These are the actual items, and what you can see here is we really tried for them to make them truly generic. There's a one limitation though, one sort of because a lot of the work focused on sensors, and also a lot of the scale is also influenced by other work that sort of that talked about systems touching the body. In item 4 is actually about wearing stuff. So sometimes, sometimes it doesn't address all kinds of systems that we could possibly use for that. We're actually working on a revision right now that broadens it. But again, that's the issue of having the foundations in psychology for the concept of creepiness. But on a meta level, what this shows that we started with a very simple idea of how do we use sensors to benefit people's well-being, and we ended up with developing a scale. And I think this kind of shows that sort of often technologies for being a good starting point for more for broader inquiries. And what I'm really happy to report is that other researchers have already used this for stuff that has nothing to do with well-being. Right? So I think that's a really cool way to kind of elevate the research to a meta level, even though we started with what I would say is probably a very simple problem. And this brings me to my last part, which is about how you can take an understanding lens, so to speak, on well-being technologies. And what we did there is I want to talk to you about a study where we looked into how people use the primarily fitness trackers to achieve goals. And again, we are boiling down to the same thing that I've been talking about. Is then we have data. This time it's data that comes from fitness trackers. We want to understand how people take the data and relate it to well-being and relate it to real life. The important thing that we wanted to do here, that's what differentiates it from the other studies that I've talked about, is here our goal was explicitly theory building. So we wanted to really understand how these processes unveil, and we wanted to understand how we can possibly build a more general understanding of the mechanisms behind how goals work, in order to be able to generalize this to well-being and fitness tracking in general. So through surveys and interviews and a lot of analysis, we've eventually reached this model. And again, it's a highly conceptual thing, but it's in a way it's very simple, because what it tells us is basically that people have some fundamental needs, and we propose that you could use the theory of hedonic and daimonic needs, but honestly you could possibly plug in your favorite needs theory here. These needs, they manifest themselves and goals, and then these goals are then translated into goals that can actually be used in a fitness tracker. And again, this on a meta level, this may seem complicated, but in reality it is quite simple. Namely, in this example, people often have this internal desire to feel well, or to have a sense of fulfillment, and that usually is translated into a number of high-level goals, like having an active lifestyle or using weight. And then that means that through a number of things that the technology can facilitate, this can be translated into goals that can be quantified, like the number of active hours, steps, training sessions, and so on and so on. And again, here what I show is, like, we started with again quite a well-being embedded and quite a simple problem is, how do we help people set goals properly? But what we've built on a meta level, we've built that understanding of how technology can support that what we call a translation process, but on a meta level, what this means is how we can help people manifest whatever the goals are on a qualitative way into something that is understandable by a computer, if you will. Yeah. So this was my this was my quick talk. I realized that I did write all of them with my partner, so I included her as well in the closing slide. The message that I want to leave you with is that I believe that a valuable perspective on things is that often, despite the fact that in HCI, often our research is very much driven by the application area where we are fascinated, that we're fascinated with. In my case, it's well-being. More often than not, to address that application area, well, we actually are faced with more meta challenges, and I believe that answering those meta challenges and doing it in a way that feeds well into our application driven research is something that can be really meaningful. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, we have time for some questions. We could have some questions either in the room or the people online. You can, I guess, either write them down, or I think you can even unmute yourself. This should also work. Yeah, please
start.
Yeah,
please. Questions to like each field. So the first one was really cool with the shoe. I really like the idea of just projecting the data back instead of like thinking about how to visualize. Just very simple, bring it back to the object. I was wondering, was it just about replaying the data, or did you also like overlay with, let's say, like the perfect run, how you actually should run? Because basically, I understand I only see how my weight was there, but maybe I could overlay, I could compare how far am I away from the correct one, or where should it be right, or what's like a recommendation?
Thank you for the question, because it's a really cool one, and there's kind of there's two sad answers, so to speak. So first, what we did in the study, we first people had like an information sheet to read through about what stride means and what is the by then current research about stride and running, so they understand the perspective. And then we talked about them, so what do you think, what kind of runner are you, right? And sort of many of them had no idea, but some of them had say they were, okay, I'm a former striker, been all my life, and so on, and that enabled them to relate that. And also what they did is they also compared they compared their results by when replaying with the sheet. And we actually did that because the Runscribe, the software, it also gives you like values on what this should be. Right?
Okay.
But the other thing, and I think that's the more interesting aspect from a research point of view, is exactly the question of what it should be. Right. So the truth is, and most especially in this particular application area, the research shows that you should run with the stride pattern that is comfortable. That is the sort of obviously if you're going for performance, if you're professional, that's a totally different story. There's the kinetical optimization, but for people who are recreational runners, you should run with how it feels most comfortable, and this leads to the lowest amount of injuries.
So then the idea is more that you try to label, you try to remember when was it comfortable, when was it not, and then
that's exactly the thing. It's like what we want to avoid, and what we really want to avoid in the design is that the system is telling people what's correct or what's incorrect. And you know, in terms of many well-being technologies that I work with, that is often the thing that many commercial systems try to do, and B, what people hate in those commercial systems, right? So if I were to name a single thing that I've heard in most interviews that I've run, is like, I don't want a computer to tell me what to do. It's by far the most common feedback we get in any kind of well-being technology study. So I would say it's a major theme, and here basically we try to be as objective as possible. But obviously, even the way we design the visualization is already subjective. It's a design choice, right? So we're always, as designers, we are stuck in this thing that we want to leave as much of the reflection to the user, but on the other hand, there is a part of it that is on our side, and I guess it's about being responsible about doing it well.
may I quickly jump in here? How do you avoid that people are like getting used to patterns that are not very healthy? I mean, usually if you have physiotherapists or someone like that, experts, they're trying to avoid that people fall into patterns that are not healthy. For example, if you have a hip problem or something like that, so that you're avoiding specific movements. And I think this would actually support this kind of.
Yes, so I mean, I think even in the slide, we had an example where the pattern was very different. And then, so these tools will show you that, and Ranscribe is also very good at telling you this. If you have like a major major lack of symmetry, it will tell you that. I mean, again, it's probably a bit of a broader question where we, the regulatory status right now with all these things that we do is that these are toys, right? So often, and sort of. And again, even in the study that I talked about with tracker goals, people are often like, oh, why wouldn't this tell me that something's wrong with my health, right? It can't, because then it would need to be a medical device, and it doesn't, right? So it's sort of I think it's a tricky line, and again, something that we try to navigate, because you can point people in the right direction with the right design, and here you can see the disproportion. But we can't have a running device that will tell you, oh, something's wrong, go to the doctor. Right? I think the regulations are good because the potential for abuse is, and we already see it even for well-being applications. We see a lot of abuse in terms of telling people stuff that is just probably dangerous. So I think it's good that it's regulated, but if you mean well, then you're also a bit constrained.
I would have a question about creepiness. In all the years of your research, have you ever, was there a pattern? Which type of devices are more likely to feel creepy to the users? Let's say rings, smartwatches, trackers of the feet, or was there a pattern? Which type of technology is the creepiest?
This is something we're basically trying to map this out and follow-up studies. I mean, there's two factors here. So because this is a phenomenon that's also very close to psychology. One thing that has to be said here is this scale works very well, but only if you have a user group very well defined. Right? Because the personality factor to what is creepy is the decisive factor, right? And there's some recent studies about it in psychology. So what we're looking into now is basically, there's probably a propensity to creepiness. Can we understand that? And can we then study technologies by saying, if we know what your creepiness factor is as a person, can we then compare technologies that they're creepy? Because then we could answer your question exactly, sort of to understand what are the properties that look to creepiness. Right? From the studies that we've run, and also from what the studies that other people have run, I can tell you two things that are definitely there is stuff that touches your skin directly, and especially not when you're usually touched, right? So just putting stuff on your head, putting stuff on your hands, legs, that's creepy. The other thing is anything that is animal-like, right? And obviously there's a sort of there's also touching on the problem of uncanny valley that is definitely related to creepiness. Somehow no one has studied the relationship. That's probably also an open question. But for us, specifically stuff that is animal-like. So like the sort of the human-like stuff was less of an issue. In the paper we have a spider robot, but not like one that looks like a spider. It's a child's robot for like €3 that just has 4 legs and crawls. That's super creepy, even though it's also funny and makes funny sounds and it's a toy, right? So that's definitely a thing. But this is on a meta level. I would like to have a collection of design qualities that are likely precursors to creepiness, but unfortunately we have to, like the psychology people have to figure that out first, and then we have to figure out how we take that knowledge and marry it with ACI stuff.
So in a way, I mean, a scale suggests that this actually can be applied. So that's also what you said. You're looking for a tool to measure. But as you explained, now it looks more like you get more about to understand what creepiness actually is, because it depends on so many factors. It depends maybe on my personality, but also depends on the situation. Am I going to a Halloween party, or am I going like toward like a formal and welcome event? So there's a lot of factors in there as well.
Yeah.
Then it becomes kind of
it becomes, yeah, and I think there's the ontological question is the meta question that's really important, but I think this will take a long time. And I mean, I think it's also a question of, is it this within the remit of HCI or should someone else do it better, right? But what I think is definitely important for us is what we're trying to do, what we try to do here, and we try to do it better in the future, is to clearly be able, in a design process, to clearly be able to tell, okay, this is potentially creepy, let's not develop this better. Right?
Hard question, right? I mean, it may also change over time, so.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
So, wearables, I think they used to be creepy, now they're not creepy, they're just.
So it depends on what kinds of wearables, right?
Yeah,
For example, there's the News headband, which is like a portable EEG, if you don't know it. For me, it looks like headphones, but for other people, the fact that it's an EEG is extremely creepy.
Yeah.
So it's also just, so that's what I'm thinking is, if we know what user group we're working with, and then we have the means to understand their personality profile, then we can also measure the creepiness and understand if for these particular people that we want the thing to work for, is there a danger of this being too creepy, so that it leads to them not accepting the technology, right? But I think you're very right. It will always be at a certain point in time, and also with a certain technological context, more broadly, right? Because it is a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
And that's something that we cannot ignore, that it will evolve as culture evolves, right? So probably even, some of the measurements that we took on the scale from 3 years ago, they are probably no longer valid. But then that's why also in the paper, we explicitly say that we don't suggest that the scores of the scale should ever be interpreted that this is a scale that only works for comparisons.
Yeah.
You mentioned that well, you obviously developed it kind of with the scale with a view on well-being, but then you mentioned that other researchers used it kind of in unexpected ways. So what were kind of some of the applications of it?
I mean, the coolest thing that I've seen is what it was used in the paper was strictly about gesture interfaces, right? And it was about different sensing and just gesture designs. Because some of the gestures can be just unacceptable to do public and so on. So it was even used as a potential acceptance measure, right? And they really and they managed to. What I really liked is they managed to use it very effectively in their design process to tell apart alternatives of design. It was worked by Radu from Romania. So that was really cool.
Yeah, cool.
And kind of and what I'm really happy about is we came from this well-being kind of a meta level background, but it turns out that the scale can be used in more focused studies on particular prototypes where they are kind of working out particular features of a given system.
Yeah, because this is what I found very interesting, because we're doing this kind of talk about responsible computing in a way, and so it's kind of a scale that could be used to measure how responsible in a way something is, right? So if you see something is too creepy, maybe this technology shouldn't be developed or used in certain ways. Yeah.
I mean, I think sort of we'll go back to Lauren's argument, or maybe it's just the world is not ready yet, right? That is also a valid answer. So it's always about, I think it's at the end of the day, it's always about what you're comparing. Right? And I think probably if you compare different alternative prototypes of the same general system, then it's going to be really powerful. But if you're comparing across different systems or systems that are just very different, then probably the utility is a bit less.
So in your last part, you talked about the understanding and about a model, which I think makes sense and I can follow. I was just wondering who would do the translation. So the translation from this qualitative goals to this measurable data, is it something that the company, the designer does for the user? Is it the user do it themselves? As we were speaking, I was just putting it into ChatGPT and say, translate losing weight into measurable sensors. And it worked surprisingly well, just giving you all the obvious options. So how do you see this being implemented? Is this more something you observe to explain the phenomenon, or is it something that you provide as a process that should be.
I mean, so what we talk about in the paper is some systems have traces of that, and we also for last year's Sky, we also had a paper that was basically about that. Is that we used LLMs to add a narrative layer to it. But honestly, I think this is really problematic in terms of in terms of how we control this, because again, these are not tell technologies, these are toys, so there's already like, we are, I don't think none of you are, have you finished the study with Megan?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are now running a study about how commercial products already use LLMs, because there's a particular tracker protocol called Boop that already allows you to talk to your data, and that's what it's trying to do. But obviously that means that translation is either either in the hands of OpenAI or if lucky in the designs of the tracker.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's a major issue. So obviously LLMs are probably going to be useful to this, but we should understand, and that's a future research project that we are now trying to figure out how to study. But basically, how do we scaffold that so that it's not the system telling you what to do, but people having an actual reflection process,
Right.
and doing the translation in an explicit way.
Yeah.
Right. But that paper was published 2018. The study was around 16, 17. So back then, it was what we've seen as this primarily happened in fora, right? So there were people either discussing their findings or they discussed online on how to map these goals. Now there are solutions that technically offer this. They're not good. It's just that simple. It's definitely, I think, moving on, this will not benefit the well-being.
Yeah.
Right. Any more questions? Maybe online? I'll just have a look. No. Okay.
I would have another
Yeah.
question, maybe very fundamental question, but a bit more, well, my research is in variable computing, so I would be interested into the sensors for the shoe. Are there any sensors, or is it only a display that shows the results from other devices?
So like the pod, they now have, like, this was version 1 when we were like, we got that pod, we got it off Patreon, but now they're a proper company. And then what I mean, it's a very fancy gyro and accelerator, but what they do is like they have the proprietary processes on that. So they are really good at they are used in like professional runners run this, and professional sports labs use their sensors.
Okay.
Because the alternative is a treadmill and motion tracking, obviously. It's cool, but if you want to investigate terrain, so for example, for triathletes, they use it a lot because then you don't run on the flat surface all the time, right? They now have a thing called unsettling red, which is like the professional version of it, and the data processing is impressive because so the amount of analysis that you can get out of it, obviously only useful by if you're a kinesiologist, because it's very advanced. Is really cool.
Okay, so they only rely on IMU database.
Yeah, basically, and it's like, and they also make the pod really small these days, which is also pretty cool.
So it was not like in the soul, which I thought initially.
Yeah, I can show you guys some. There are some of the lab. It's like, it's basically, you either put it in the back, and either you put a tab in the back of the shoe, or you just lace it in, just like a cradle.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you put between the laces, and there's a.
But it's an IMU. It's not the force that also.
But instead of there were a couple of, in kinesiology, there were a couple of papers where they verified their devices, and they basically there are no significant differences between an actual Newton meter in the sole, or even the Newton meter in the floor versus their stuff. So it's really, really good. Wow.
All right. There are no more questions, then thank you so much for a very interesting talk and a cool discussion. So
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you guys for coming.